Hi, well, yeah, nice to meet you, Justin. We're here today with Justin Grossbard from Compare Forex Traders. Initially, Justin, it'd be great just to find out, why did you start and create, Compare Forex Brokers?
So I think, sometimes in life you see a problem that you want to solve yourself. So in this case, I used to actually work with a Forex training company. And, people go through this course, you learn how to trade currency, CFDs, etc. And at the end, these training companies sign you up for a Forex broker. They just say, join this one. And they make a bit of a kickback. And so I was working with this company for a while, and eventually I said, is the Forex broker you recommend any good? And they said, oh, they pay us a bit of money for the referral, but I don't know. And I said, well, who's a good Forex broker? And they said, mate, you cannot compare Forex brokers. It can't be done. So obviously the name Compare Forex Brokers is pretty self-explanatory. But sometimes in life, to compare something properly, let's say you need a new electricity provider in London. You have to then get a quote from each one in your postcode, make a messy spreadsheet, work out all the variables, and eventually you can find it, and that's going to take you 5 hours. Another way is just to ask your friend who's already done that 5-hour job and say who's the cheapest, and they give you that referral. In this case, it took us probably 3 months to make that spreadsheet because the brokers didn't want to publish it back then. Now they're a lot better. But in those days, none of this was publicly acceptable. We made the mother of all Google Sheets, me and Noam, making this, and eventually we had it. We had the first ever comparison properly done. And then generally, what are we trying to do with this site? We publish the data. Say that here's our spreadsheet, just like you give to your mate. Here's a spreadsheet, and based on X, Y, and Z, this one's going to be the best one for you. So generally, it was kind of a challenge almost, like, you can't do this. It's the wrong thing for my personality. I'm going to have a shot, and I'm going to try to do it. And yes, it's going to be a commercial thing that I make, but it's going to be useful for all these others. And generally, I like transparency. Like, that's the general thing. I don't like to go to a hotel and suddenly get all these hidden fees and all that. I want to know what I'm up for. I want a spreadsheet, make it nice and easy, and then you go ahead with it.
Nice. Thanks for that, Justin. And just obviously, Compare Forex Brokers was Australia-based. Obviously, we're talking to you in Australia now for some time. And 3 years ago, you switched to a more global focus. Why that shift?
Sure. So, the key thing is that some would have called Australia the Wild West. Okay, because in the UK, and the UK was a long time ago, and there's something called leverage. For those that don't understand, it's like being able to borrow money so you're more exposed to the market. So right now, the leverage that's been set in the UK and now in Australia is 30-1. So if you've got $100, you can trade with the equivalent of $3,000. So because currencies don't move much, you never see the pound, unless it's an extreme day, going up by more than 1 or 2%. So you need leverage. 30-1 is a fair amount of leverage. Back in a few years ago, it was 500-1. Okay, so think of it. You got $100. That's $5,000 to actually trade from your 100, and all you need is the market to go up 2%, and you've doubled your money, or you've lost it all. So for a beginner trader, that is a lot of exposure, and what it meant is a lot of movement would happen on these brokers were having high turnover, people were making a lot of money, people were losing a lot of money. And of course, once the regulation finally came to Australia, and we were the same as the UK, having a website like mine was not commercial just to have in Australia. So we're like, well, let's try to expand to similar markets like the UK, to New Zealand, Singapore, Canada, all with different regulation, but it's essentially the same job. It's the same job, but you just got to redo the spreadsheet each time. So, we saw the regulation coming. We could understand that this was going to impact the business. What's our choices? We can pack up and go home and work on something else. We can or we can start saying, okay, so there's going to be less movement, but if we go global, we can compensate for that. And that's a big risk for any business. Going from being local, in the UK to going, it's a lot. You got to learn about regulation. In our case, you got to move from a .com.au to a .com. There's a lot of technical issues, caching, servers, and all this. But I would encourage anyone to really investigate and just to have a shot. Like, we should have done it earlier because it's so much work. Nobody wants to make that big, but as soon as you go global, the opportunity is just so much more. Obviously Australia is smaller, UK you're much larger, but US is massive. It's more competition, but if you can just get a small market share in a market like US, it just blows your mind at just how big the US market is. So that's generally why we left Australia and we went first UK and now we're a lot more global than we were back then.
Thanks, Justin. Really interesting to hear about the opportunities you kind of mentioned there with going global, and I think a lot of our viewers and businesses will kind of chime with that. But I just want to get a sense of some of the challenges you faced in going global as well.
So my viewpoint. So our website's a bit different from our competitors. When we went global, rather than just making general pages, we made whole sections for every country. So we have about 40 pages for UK residents only, and if you're in the UK, you will see only our UK pages, because you shouldn't be giving them, you want to read information that's relevant for you. So we're talking about hyper-local customization. So understanding of the regulations, but understanding tax so there's tax changes in the UK. So there's something called CFDs, there's something called spread betting. Spread betting has a different tax law. That's why people do it. So trying to understand, what are the options in these locations? If we redo the spreadsheets, what do people in the UK want versus Australian traders? It's really fascinating. Let me give you an example. I know this may be too technical, but there's two types of accounts in my industry. There's something called a standard account. A standard account is when you trade on a currency and the markup's already there. Okay, so imagine you go to the airport and you see the rate there. Okay, and you can see that there's a difference between a buy and a sell. Okay, you can see it and you go, okay, that's how the broker makes money, but that's it. That's called a standard account. Then there's another type of account called kind of a raw account, and that's when the differences are less, but then you have to charge a commission. So for anyone that's been around for a while like me, in the olden days when you used to go to the airport, you used to not only have to pay that rate, but then they'd charge you another 50 quid on top of that. So that was the way. So you got these two accounts, and in Australia we like the raw account, whereas within the UK people prefer the standard account. It's really interesting, but that's the type of understanding that you need to know. You need to know, what do people want. Is there, and then if they want the standard account, let's compare standard accounts for them. Let's talk about tax implications. Let's talk about, what does customer service look like from these brokers if you're in the UK? It doesn't matter Australia. What's the server performances? You understand, unless you've got to make the effort to understand the location, understand the regulation, and then talk to this specific audience and not be broad and not be lazy. I think that's the difference between penetrating a market properly and rather, because there's so much competition in almost every vertical, that if you're going to become better, you've got to understand your audience the most and customize your information the most.
That's really interesting, Justin. I think that, like you said, being too broad and the difference between sort of, understanding your market, makes a huge difference. There's some good insight there. And you've touched on the going global and some of the challenges, but what are some of the other hurdles that your business is facing right now?
So I'd say right now the biggest issue that we've got is actual content. Okay, so content. So let's look at today. Okay, no generic content. You just said it yourself. Okay, be specific. Now you could do Chat GPT. You could just get it right. But I don't know if you've used Chat GPT, but it's pretty generic. But it can give you the facts, but the facts may be incorrect as well. So very often when we did Chat GPT and we say, which of these brokers is better, it would actually say, oh, this broker because of X, Y, Z. And then we correct Chat GPT, says, are you sure about that? And says, oh, I'm sorry. You can't afford to be making corrections. Chat GPT is very dangerous because what may seem like a fact isn't necessary, and it doesn't always give the sources to explain where did you get that incorrect fact from. So as I said, trying to make the content. Now, I want to tell you where the future of content is right now. The future of content isn't necessarily about giving facts. Chat GPT and all this is going to get better and better at facts. It's about giving opinions, okay? So you want to be able to say which broker is best. It doesn't want to hear a bunch of facts. It wants to hear, hey, I tried both of these, and I like this one because it was easy to join. I did this, when I trade a bit, it wants your opinion. It wants to know that you've really done, and that's what people want to hear. Now, that type of content takes a lot of time, as you can imagine. So, we're trying to, everybody's struggling to get people these days. And one of the hardest skills to get is a really good content writer. I'm looking for a content writer that actually trades as well. You can imagine a subset of the population that do both and wants to do this on a regular basis. So we do have a lot of writers, but all of our writers are part-time and very part-time because they don't want to talk about what we are doing all day long. They want to trade. They want to talk about other things in finance. It's a very specific niche. I couldn't write about what we do all day, every day. So, trying to get that, that level, there's so much opportunity when you see it in so many verticals. Forex. I'm not necessarily talking about Forex. I'm talking about futures markets and a lot of exciting, things to trade. Something like Robinhood. These free apps. They all need to be compared. Opportunities are there. The question is, you've got to work out with your resources, where do you go? And not to go too broad again. Are we going to nail it in the UK? Understand them inside out. If we're going to target of something like spread betting, are we going to write everything possible about spread betting, compare every provider, not just the top ones, not just ones that we're making money from, all of them properly? That's where the challenge is, I would say. And so we want to be able to make opinions, and we want to be able to make opinions based on data. So if you don't mind, I'll just talk a bit more. And that is that, so we hired someone called Ross Collins. And Ross Collins was a chief technology officer at a very large technology firm. And he now works for us, and he literally is comparing, he's using special expert advisors, like bots, to actually test it properly. He's spending weeks and weeks and weeks, and he has the technological knowledge. But you need someone like Ross to give the data. So you've got actual unique data. That's the key to success now. Unique data that you can't just go to each website and say, oh, look, they've published these spreads. Wait a second. Anyone could do that. What are the real spreads? What are the real fees in real environments? So you need to test it. And then, of course, after that, provide that to writers and to myself, except the data, to help us form an opinion. Do you understand? So where's the challenges? The challenges are trying to go, what is the future? The future is Chat GPT. Chat GPT is going to scrape the web. Everything's going to be the same. We need to be different. We need to be better. We need to have real data, and then we need to have writers that understand this, can look at the data to base an opinion easily. So once you have a data, and the data says, these are the execution speeds. This is how fast each one is. We published that 2 weeks ago. Real data and execution speeds. You can pass this to a writer, and then a writer can see that data and say, hey, this one's the fastest, and here's the proof, and that's why I like this one. It's a real opinion, but we're assisting them with real data.
No, that makes sense. It's really interesting because obviously Chat GPT will be a huge enabler, but like you say, if everyone uses it, everyone's going to be presenting the same content until it becomes more refined in itself, isn't it? So what you're saying, what you're saying is your
content. Yeah, it's just factual. And if you say, is Barclays better than Swiss Bank, which is topical, of course, You don't want to hear a bunch of facts of how many trade. You don't want to. You want to hear an expert give their opinion and say, well, Barclays is better because it's a much more stable bank. It's regulated by the FCA, and it's and it's got a lot more traders and a lot more options with lower fees. And that's my opinion. That's what you want to hear. You don't want to hear Chat GPT spit out a bunch of data, and it may give an opinion, but it's normally you don't believe it, and you don't know who made it, and you want to hear an expert that knows the area, has looked at the data, and based on that, helped you. The electricity comparison. Remember how we talked about that before? You want the expert friend who knows the sector, has made the sheet, and says, I've done the sheet, and this one's better, and this is why. And that's the future of content. And that's what the web's meant to be, isn't it? The web's meant to be helping us solve our problems. And you want your problems to be solved by experts that you trust. That's why you read the Financial Times, etc., because you trust these sources. You may not trust the Financial Times for the football results and which player was the best. So, Google's getting smarter at this, but so are people. So you need to know, what's my niche? Do I have experts? Do they have real data? Are we forming an opinion that helps people make that final? And we need to be transparent about how we make money in the process. And you'll see most websites are starting to do that now, like how we make money, advertiser disclosures, etc. But what the truth is that let me give you the truth about a vertical mattress. Try mattress. I encourage any reader to Google the keyword mattress comparisons. Okay, you'll find a ton of mattress comparison websites. It's a booming industry because a lot of people now order mattresses online. We all used to go into these shops and jump on each bed, trying desperately to work out which one we like the most. And now a lot of people are doing online. So therefore, a comparison site. I guarantee you, none of these people that make these websites have tested the mattresses. Okay, they're just saying the manufacturer's details and manufacturers. I say that's not these websites are going to die, and someone needs to be legitimate and test the mattresses. That's what you want, isn't it? You want someone that's ordered every mattress, slept on each one, taken photos, videos, and then makes that table and says, okay, softness level, price, what I think, did I sleep? Did I wake up? Could I feel my wife move? Did she snore? All this type of stuff. But you want to hear a real, that's what, that's the future. That's what we want to see. Don't you think that's what you want to see when you search mattress comparison?
100%. It's really interesting you say that, because we often get told we're going in the opposite direction, where it's less about people, it's more about technology and AI. But I think if you can cut through that and have expert opinion, like you say, it's very, very powerful. A great opportunity for everyone viewing there, become a mattress tester and reviewer.
Just look at what's there right now, read the content on these websites, and ask yourself, has that guy really tested it, or are they just saying what the manufacturers told them? I mean, just a video would just be nice. I want to see a video of the guy on the bed. I've never ever seen someone actually sitting on the bed in their room saying, "Hey, I tested this," and that's what we're craving for. I think as people now, we want it to be done by an expert. Maybe a back surgeon or I don't know, someone with a bit of authority, someone that you can trust. As I said, you don't want someone from the Financial Times testing beds. You want a person that you trust doing testing these beds, really doing it, proving that he's done it, and giving a real opinion based on real data. That's, I think, the future.
Definitely, and you kind of touched on where you see the future of content and how consumers and businesses can consume that. But what do you also see as what are your plans for the future in terms of the business and where you want to kind of develop it?
Sure. So I think we're going to be careful with what is content. Okay, so in the past, make lots of pages, write about them. I think now with content, we've got to, Google, we're all dependent on Google still. So I can't say that change, maybe been a little bit. So I'm talking about being real. That's a key thing, and that's anyone that wants to start a business or a website. I just think it doesn't cost that much to buy all those mattresses. You can return them possibly. I'm not recommending you do it, but whatever you're thinking about doing, if you're going to compare, buy all the shoes, buy all this, buy all that, or test all the products. If you're going to do a Forex broker comparison website, you need to be a trader and then test, open up every single account. It's going to cost money. It's going to take time, but be legit. So as you're doing that, obviously you want to keep a track of all your results. You want to be taking pictures, lots of pictures with you. If you say, oh, I don't want to be associated with this business. This is my side hustle. I say, don't do it. That's the authority. If you look at my website, it's got my name on it. It's everywhere. Now, I do have a second job. I'm a manager of an agency, but I can't, and Forex used to be hidden away. But now I realize, no, Google, Chat GPT, none of it will accept it. You have to disclaim, this is me, have pictures with you doing the product, have videos. So videos, I believe, are the future. So obviously we're doing a video right now, but you'll see on my website that over the last 2 months, every broker is starting to get videos with me. And just as importantly, I'm starting to go to the actual brokers' headquarters, and I'm interviewing them at their location. So if you look at the Pepperstone review, you'll see me interviewing the head of research, and we're talking about products, we're talking about them, etc. And that's the future. Once again, that realism. If someone, I'm not going to say anything race. If someone from a dodgy country, we'll call them dodgy country, and they're trying to pretend that they're real and it's a scam website. Okay, so we all know what we're talking about. Financial scam websites. These websites, obviously they'll look bad, but they may have content that looks half reasonable. But what differentiates a scam website from a real website, outside of you fact checking who wrote it and stuff like that, is that it's those pictures, it's the videos. A scammer can't have this interview and talk to you with realism, and then you can check this, and then you look at that person's LinkedIn. You look at Justin Grossbard, look at his LinkedIn. Oh my God, he's a real person. And then you can keep on looking at me. Oh, he writes for People Inner, for Entrepreneur. You can start realizing this is a real person. And and it's that realism. It's and how do you identify a real person? How does someone, let me ask you, this is an interesting one. How does someone become a celebrity? This is something that on Google. So if you Google yourself, do you get a big pop-up about your name, or do you just get a bunch of listings? So why is Google declaring some people to be a celebrity and some not? And I don't have the secret sauce, but I do believe, for the readers, YouTube is important. So if you're on other people's channels, like I'm going to be on your channel, that's important. So Google can suddenly see, oh, you're on all these different channels, just like in the olden days, you used to be on the BBC and all these things. That will make you a celebrity. So if you're on other people's channels, that's a component. I believe another component will be something like, have you written a book, okay, on Amazon? So it's an interesting one, because think of like late night TV. Hello, I'm Justin Grossbard, and I wrote the book on Forex. It's always, and Google's American, so Google's very academic. So you can understand that Google wants to see saying, if you're an expert, you would have written a book. So there you go, readers. If you're going to be an expert on mattresses, maybe you need to write the book on mattresses. I'd be interested to read this book. I don't know how long this book is, but that's obviously another area. And Google's looking at your socials. As I said, they are looking. You can't pretend. And looking at how active. And then how many websites do you write for? Where have you been? So believe it or not, I know I can talk a lot, but I'm an introvert. So in a lot of ways. So before about 2 years ago, I didn't write for anyone. I was never on YouTube. There was no trace of me. I was doing fine in the business. My agency was doing well in this. But you can't afford to be that person anymore. You have to put your name towards whatever you do. Google wants to know ownership. It wants to say, who owns this website? Who's the guy? who owns Amazon? Who owns Apple? It wants to know this information. It needs to be public information, and you've got to put yourself forward and go outside your comfort zone. So, so I'd say if anyone is looking and they're thinking about starting their own website, obviously, you know what I'm saying about authenticity. You make the website. The next level to invest in I'd say is a good YouTube studio. And you can use your phone if you like. Phones are great these days, but just set up the lighting, the tripod, the software, and start doing videos. And no one's good the first time. No, everyone's awkward the first time. You know what I'm saying? Everyone's awkward the first time. But start recording, I would say, and you'll just I just think this is like speeches. You just get the only way you get better is by doing them and then looking at how it went, getting critiquing by other people, and just keep on doing it over and over. I mean, you've done lots of is it the same story with yourself with when you started doing recordings?
Yeah, no, definitely. We used to do a lot of things in person. Then 2019 we started to come online and things like that. So yeah, the first time you do it, you cringe, don't you? But then you start to get into a rhythm, and then you get better and better, don't you?
100%, exactly.
No, thanks. I mean, some really interesting insights, which I think will be of interest to the people who watch this. I also want to ask if when some of our readers and members kind of do watch this video, and they're maybe not familiar with Forex or they're new to Forex trading, what would be your advice in terms of how to start the process of eventually looking to make money in this area?
Sure. I mean, I'm not trying to advocate anyone to do Forex. I want to put it out there. I am licensed. I do have licenses in Australia around this area, but I think first of all you got to understand that each broker publishes the amount of retail traders that make money, and it's normally something not a great number. So often you'll find something like between 70 to 80% of traders will lose money. So you have to understand that at the start, okay? So a bit like a horse racing, this is very different, but I'm saying most people that we understand that bet on lead brokers is going to lose money. Forex is a bit different, okay, obviously. So for every winner in a trade, there's a loser. So you think that's a 50-50. So in general terms, why don't 50% of people make money and lose money? It's the fees, okay? So think of when you're playing poker with your mates. Someone's going to win. You're going to come up 50-50 for the group. But if you're at a casino with your mates and the house keeps on taking a few chips away, very slowly, you can imagine how that's going to eat away. And that's one of the reasons why, and then the question is, how do I start trading? I would say pick the right broker. Can't say how important that is. Obviously, look at our website. That's the starting point. And then it's got a demo account. Just do a demo account. That's the key. Demo accounts are sophisticated. They're allowing back testing facilities and just trade for a while, and just trade virtual currency and see if it's right for you. I'll just say for anyone in the UK, you should look at spread betting. So CFDs and spread betting are very similar, but spread betting is a tax in a very good way. So I strongly, if I was in the UK resident, I would be definitely saying, look, it's very similar, but there's great tax benefits. So look into that, find a right broker based on that, use a demo account. And then when you're ready to trade and you're happy with the broker, because you can still switch when you're in demo account, you don't have to take up the full leverage, 30-1. You can trade with less leverage. There's a lot of stop losses in the market now. So you can say, I'm only willing to lose this much on a trade, on a personal basis. And this isn't financial advice, but these days you can't go into negative balance anymore. So you are protected in almost all countries, especially in the UK and Australia. You can't lose more money than you deposit. And all brokers are allowed to deposit very little. So you could put $200 into your account and you can't lose more than $200. That's a great position to be in. I'm willing to, if you're willing to lose £200, and that's fine, that's small for you. Well, why don't you trust, after your demo, put a small amount there and go, that's how much I'm willing to lose. If I lose it, I'm fine with that. I'm comfortable, and start from there. and then you can, obviously move on and move on from there. But and then just there's a lot of training around. There's a lot of communities, etc. So there's a lot of different ways of trading as well. There's just what you're thinking right now is one of the most common, which is I'm just going to buy some USD. I think the USD is going to rise, and that may be because I know there's going to be a Fed announcement. I think Switzerland's going to go bankrupt, whatever it is. So you do that and you sell. That's one type. A very popular type is when actual tech heads make programs and the programs do automatic trading. It's amazing how easy it is. Obviously, you need to know a bit of code, but that's really common where people think that they can code and based on certain environments, they'll quickly make trades, etc. The third type is a dangerous type, in my opinion. It's very popular. It's called social trading. And social trading, someone like eToro is the leader, is when you can actually, eToro will show all their traders and show their success rate. And then you can say, I want to copy every one of their trades. And these people make a small commission from then, and you've got to pay high fees, but you don't have to trade. You just say, every trade that he does, I want to mirror, and I'm willing to do this much. Now, I like to bet on the horses, okay? And I do, but anyone that's bet on the horses for quite a few years knows that tippers have runs and then they go really bad. Now, I've bet some tippers that you think can never lose. And for a few months they can't. And then they lose. They can't. And they seem to go through these losing streaks. So, the problem with social trading is the allure of, oh, that guy's been winning the last 2 months. I'll get on the bandwagon. It's a risky thing. Once again, like, I'm not telling anyone to not do it, but just be very careful, because just because that guy's on a winning streak doesn't mean it's going to continue. Otherwise, everyone would be doing it. This would be going viral. Hey, get into it. So be very careful. Know your limits. Negative balance protection has been around for a long time. You can't lose more than a deposit. So don't put £1 million into the account and then be surprised that, oh my God, it's all gone. Well, you're only got negative balance. Whatever you put into the account, you can lose, and you need to be aware of that. So, once again, I'm not giving any financial advice. My job is to make sure that broker, the house is important that you've worked out. Fees are important. Speed is important. If you see a price and then you put in that price and it takes 3 seconds to get that price, that's a long time. A lot can happen that time. So you need a broker that is a low fee, fast execution, gives you the graphs and all that help you for your level, and gives you the features of, if you're social, well, this certain types of brokers are better than others. So you can understand. So we do name the best UK broker. We call it Pepperstone, and they are the best. But we definitely don't say they're the best in every single circumstance and for every type of trader. Overall, they're the best, but in certain circumstances, there are better brokers out there. So that's a very long answer to a very short question, obviously. But I just want to make people aware of the risks, and just to be aware of the broker is going to be one of the biggest factors. Get the broker on, make the house have the advantage too much, and the fact that the fees are in a way, it's going to be tough to make a profit. So do your research. Be my recommendation.
Justin, some really, really good qualified insight there. I think, particularly around social trading, like you say, if it was that good, everyone would be doing it, wouldn't they?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I just, you're based in Australia. I just want to get your perspective as well on the UK. Often, the UK, we can be, a little bit down on ourselves sometimes. There's a lot of industrial action. There's the whole Brexit thing.
Yep.
Rumbling. I just want to get your perspective as someone who lives in Australia. Do you still see the UK as an attractive market for business and investments, and why?
My biggest problem with the UK is political risk. Okay, you're changing governments too fast. I didn't like your last government that only lasted a few weeks. I did commerce in my undergraduate, and with my limited undergraduate degree, I did my master's in marketing. We knew that these policies were horrible. Any economics person, and your current prime minister said it publicly in the debate. This is a bad idea. but it still went live. There should be mechanisms in the Westminster system to stop what happened happening. A radical economic theory that the market was never going to accept, and it got through, and it went there, and it was only the market that stopped it from happening. When the market
and also, Justin, just sorry to jump in there, but remember, it was never mandated by the people, so the people didn't vote Liz Truss in.
Where's the stopgaps? Where's the protection where the UK residents never wanted this to happen? And a radical part of your parliament, America's got this problem where the Republicans are going so hard right, the Democrats are going in, and we're hoping everyone's holding their breath saying, please may the factions not dictate these parties because that's going to be bad. In the UK, this happened, and it freaked the markets out. And to me, that obviously the Brexit, tough thing to take over. After Brexit, it happened. I think UK is doing pretty well in its negotiations in very tough matters, and seems to be finding ways. Obviously, economically tough, but it is what it is. There's no point going back. This is the future, but now it's a matter of I want to invest. I want to go into here. What's going to be the next government? If Labor's going to come in, we want stability. And as far as an Australian, I don't feel you have we've gone through a government change here from Liberal Labor, very smooth, very, very smooth, smooth sailing. And generally, what Australians have said is we want smooth transitions. We don't, we had a very radical election 4 years ago, and because the belief from political parties is people want hard policies. They want differences, and Australians didn't vote for them. They said, no, it's too much. Like we want change, but we don't want to ruin the political. We don't want to ruin our economic and our reputation. Meanwhile, in the UK, scary times. Your pension funds. All these elements, and I just don't know. My gut feeling, and people can watch this in a few years, is that Labor's going to get in. I feel that there's just been too much. Who is that? What does that mean? Does that mean a lot of change from an economic perspective, or does that mean that we're going to keep running and we're going to just make small tweaks? An outsider doesn't know. I mean, I don't think. Do you know what's next at the moment?
No, I think Keir Starmer hasn't really set out his vision and what it is. I think he's in the mode of just critiquing the current government. It's probably 6 months before the election. We might know more about what he's going to do. But I would say it'll probably mean quite drastic change, which is again not that great, is it?
So what happens in the next 6 months? I'm looking to invest in the UK. Is it logical to wait 6 months right now? That's not a great position to be in.
No, it's not. It's because probably we're about 18 months away from our next election, and no one really knows what Keir Starmer's vision is. So you probably, as an investor, thinking, well, if he's going to get in, I'm going to wait to see what he actually puts his colours to the mast. So I guess it's that does create the uncertainty, doesn't it? Yeah.
So look, I lived in London, worked in London. I love the UK. I think it's got a very great banking system. It's very entrepreneurial. It can grab opportunities. I just think that now, you're out of the EU. You've got to make stronger ties with countries like Australia, and but they're looking back at you and going, well, where's the stability? And compromise is going to have to be made on a lot of things that are going to make the UK feel uncomfortable. But I think there's huge opportunities. I mean, I think that just the freedom of movement between our countries. It used to frustrate me that I used to every time I went to Europe and back into London, I had to be in a separate queue at the airport. You had your nice EU queue, and then as an Aussie, I'm treated horribly, and I have to wait in long queues. It's time for UK to think outside of that. It's time for UK we used to have a Commonwealth queue a long, long time ago. UK needs to open more to countries like Australia. And when you just say, we're same. We have reciprocal health agreements. I can be treated by the NHS over that. So why can't I just walk into London pretty much and, there's your stamp, you go through. That's the type of thinking. And then saying, as an Australian, you can invest here with minimal red tape, and we're trying to make our tax systems a bit more common. And then same here, we want UK people to more easily, just that the way that the EU, that's the way I feel that Australia, the UK, Canada, the old Commonwealth countries, I feel that there's a real opportunity here to say, we've all Westminster systems, we've got similar systems, so why can't we open up trade and open up investment and then these types of things? And I just feel that there's just too, it's just still not happening, and there's too much waiting, and it's going to have to be that way. But whoever gets back in, I think they need to really, really say, this isn't going to happen anymore. We have stopgaps in our political system, etc., to stop that from happening. And just, because right now, uncertainty stops investment. Everyone's looking for certainty, especially with banks right now. We're all looking for certainty.
That's really interesting, Justin, and it's great to get that perspective from someone who's outside the UK. And just one final question. Obviously, you mentioned off air, about Australia teaming up with New Zealand and China, and China's very interesting, and I think their COVID close down has kind of hurt them slightly with their kind of supply chains and manufacturing. I mean, two questions. I mean, what do you see as the future for China? And are you worried about China invading Taiwan? Obviously, we never thought that Russia would invade Ukraine. I just want to get your kind of perspective on that.
Being an Aussie, it's a tough one. So, look, Australia's a little kid on the block, and I hope everyone in the UK realizes that Australia was the first ones to stand up to China, and we were the biggest ones to lose the most. And our government at the time stood up and said, you're a bully, and we're not going to accept that. And they wanted to have they wanted to know where COVID came from. And Australia's paid a huge price. We can't. We've got cheap lobster here now, but our lobster used to be like $100 per kilogram, and now you can buy it here for $30. And so that's it. It's industry up. We have made massive, and I support our government, but at the same time, China, we've lost an understanding of China at the same time. And so we're trying to find a healthy medium. But, the opportunities of China, just like the US, it's massive. It's just so large. And once again, I think it's an understanding of the people, the political system. When you start trying to understand each other, that's a good thing, but also respecting each other's positions. I think that's been part of the problem, is that people have been too willing, countries like Philippines, to negotiate too much, and suddenly they've gone too far, and suddenly they pull back. So I think China respects if you have a position, and then they have it, and then you try to work within those positions. But when you don't have a position and you move too much, this is where everyone's getting to a position. So I think China's a great country. I think they got some fantastic people, some fantastic leaders. There just needs to be a better way of them understanding where we stand, and then trying to do a dialogue based on working on those positions. And the UK now is obviously doing. But I've got some very strong beliefs, and one is that I like to see societies using their resources on something that's going to make them better, better. So, personally, lawyers, I don't like to see society spend too much money on lawyers. Obviously, I don't think we're not going to become a better society from having lawyers. We are not going to become a better society by all of us spending money on military. Okay, so we've just done a pact, UK, Australia, it has to happen. And we're going to spend like $500 billion, which for Australia is just a crazy amount, considering how few people here. This needs to stop. And I don't know how it does, but the world is not going to benefit from us all having these awesome nuclear submarines and all that. Now, do I believe we should get it? Of course I do. But I'd much rather see a truce of all countries where it's like, we're going to stop this. China, can you reduce it? Just like we did with nuclear and the nuclear treaty. But, so I'm just really worried right now of what's the world's resources being allocated towards. I'll give you just one more example, Bitcoin. Was it really that great to have that many servers using that much electricity mining Bitcoin. Did that further society for some people to make, this, I don't like this. I don't like, misallocation. We should be working towards things that make people live longer, the environment gets better, space exploration, stuff that gets people excited. Instead, I feel that the last few years, we're spending more and more of areas that aren't benefiting society at all, and that scares me. I think it should scare all of us. And what's happening? We're getting older. There's few younger people. We need to use the resources smart in the future. So I just really hope that things change for the better, and we, as a society, say where do we want to head towards, and we use the resources accordingly. So is that how you feel? Have you got similar thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it becomes heightened because if everyone's investing in this nuclear and this and weaponry and military, you do kind of wonder if they're investing in it, they're going to use it, aren't they? And that's quite scary, because why would they be investing in it? So yeah, no, I do agree with you. I think the allocation of resources around the world, it's become a bit skewed, hasn't it? So
yeah. So China, as I said, they are good people, and that is the key thing to understand. But they need to show, they respect you more if you make it clear your position. This is my position. I want to know your position. Okay, there it is. Now let's talk. But as I said, I think that, my father did quite a bit of business within China, and there was a lot of respect. But, being clear on your position at your end, that helps negotiations a lot, rather than being unclear, not having an objective, not making it clear to the other party, this is why I've come to China, this is what I want to do. And once you do that and you're much more transparent, I think the Chinese respect that a lot.
No, thanks, Justin. Really good. I mean, those are my questions. Just wanted to know if there's anything you wanted to add, Justin.
Just that I think that Australia and the UK are going to be great friends. Obviously we've got our alliance better. Leaving the EU, I don't personally, I didn't think Brexit should have happened. I think a lot of people regret, but that's because I'm an economic person and I could see the benefits. Now that you've left, I just think this Australia, UK, the problem is our geographic distance. But a lot of things now, digital, etc. We need to go back to our roots and go, we're very similar countries. Same political system. We have things that UK want, UK, and we've got to work, more towards free trade and freedom of movement, freedom of goods going across, people being able to go across. UK people should be able to work here with no visa. I'll say that. They should be able to come here as you please, and so should we. Why is there a visa system between our countries when we're so similar? That's the type of thinking I feel needs to happen. And it's not just, as I said, places like Canada, New Zealand. There's a lot of similar countries, and that all changed with the EU, and it had to change. You couldn't do it anymore. Now's the time to be a lot more aggressive in these conversations and just lateral thinking and going, why can't we allow these old alliances to get together? And I'm talking not from a military, I'm talking from a financial and from a movement. When I moved to the UK, I had to get something called a highly skilled migrant program visa. It took me 9 months, cost me £5,000. Is that what we want in future? Do you want a person who's highly educated, and earning? Do you want to have to go through that many hurdles and wait that long? I don't mind having to go through something, but shouldn't it be an online application that takes 2 hours and it's done? It's in today's, everyone's struggling to get people. Why are we making it harder between our countries? We both have so much to benefit. So that's my thoughts, when it comes to our countries, and I just would love to, I'm waiting for 6 months. I'm waiting for the next election. I want to see what is going to be the UK's direction. I want to see it, and I want to know that it's stable, and we will make decisions based on it. That's what it comes down to.